You're listening to Unguarded, where we talk about relationships in every season and how to live an unguarded life. I'm your host, Beck, and Joe. We're your hosts.
We're your hosts. Two hosts.
Two hosts.
One isn't enough, so we come and we're here.
We're better together, that's for sure.
Better together. And we're fully alive, refreshed. Like,
are we?
Kids are gone with the grandparents, so we're going to live it up for the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Got a Italy trip coming for your birthday soon.
Yes.
That's going to be fun.
Very excited.
Going to do all the things that we never get to do with 4 kids, like sleep in, even though we didn't sleep in today because we were filming this podcast.
Yeah.
But do all the fun things. We love our family. We love our kids.
We love
Sometimes
them.
you got to have time with mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Beck and Joe, husband and wife, all the things.
I definitely think that, I tell people all the time how important it is to have trips, some time by yourselves as husband and wife, away from your kids. And I know sometimes it's really difficult trying to find people to look after your kids. Fortunately for us, we have your parents.
True.
Who are fine with 4. Everyone that I tell that is like, oh my gosh, so all your kids went to Arizona? And I'm like, yeah, all of them went. Like, why would not all of them go? They're like a crew together, right?
Yep.
But people are astounded because 4 seems so much, and it is. But to your mom, it's nothing. Mm-hmm. I feel like I could have had 6 kids, and she's
one
like
of 8 kids.
Yeah,
she grew up in a big house. So.
She did, and we could have had 8 kids, 6 kids, and she's like, yeah, we'll take them all. They
would have to take me as well. With all these kids, I'm moving back in. You know.
Yeah, help
full
us.
circle.
Help us parent these kids. But they're the best grandparents, really.
They really are. Yeah. And then so many things have been happening since the last time we released an episode. Here at Mosaic started a new campus. Woo! You know, got the Calabasas merch. You know, got the
Calabasas.
fresh. You know, be on the lookout. We sold out, but maybe we got some more coming.
Yes.
But yeah, that's been a huge part of our
Life.
lives is getting that going. So we've got our next gathering up in Calabasas coming soon, which
March
is
30th.
exciting. But yeah, when we're thinking about what we should talk about, I sent you an article about Alicia Keys and Swizz Beatz, right? Mm-hmm. Where they recently were interviewed, and they said that they had yet to have an argument in 15 years being together. And as producer extraordinaire David Yannis said, and a lot of people said, cap, straight cap, lies, you know.
When you say cap, what does that mean?
Oh, let me tell you, you know, I'm a little younger than you, all right? I like older women.
Get out of here.
Right?
Get out of here.
And so whole 4 months, y'all, but still, she's older. Cap, with the kids, it means you're lying. Uh-huh. You must be capping. You know, speaking of caps, we both got caps on. And so David and so many people that when they saw this article, because I put it on my story.
Yeah.
Hey, should we talk about this? And so many responses. People like, yes, absolutely, please, please. And then a lot of people saying, there's no way. And especially people who are in relationships. You can't be with somebody for 15 years and not have an argument.
Yeah.
Like somebody must be lying. Somebody must be withholding, you know, and then going to the extreme, they must have a really unhealthy relationship. And when I first saw the headline, I thought the same thing. I said, there's no way. And we talk about this a lot, right? We have a whole episode about conflict.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched, go back and watch it. It's a great episode. But we talk about how you have to learn how to fight well, right? That's a huge part of being in an authentic, healthy, vibrant relationship is you have to be willing to fight, right? Like this morning, we had a shirt on, and our fight every single time we film a podcast is
true.
Beck will say this. You're going to wear that?
No, I said, I don't think you should wear that. I don't
Oh,
like
yeah.
it.
Well, at least this time you're direct.
Yeah.
You know? Most of the time it's
I was tired and I was straight to the point.
It's a question with a statement attached on the end with an exclamation point. And she's like, oh, yeah, you're going to wear that, huh? And I said, yes, I want to wear this. I like this shirt. And then she just proceeded to leave the room.
I did.
But we know we're
I love that
disagreeing.
because it was dirty, you couldn't wear it.
It was dirty, sadly.
And so I said, well, God chose it for you not to wear it since you wouldn't listen to my opinion, which is the whole point.
That's true. God was like, hey, this shirt is really
my
important right now.
gosh.
I need you to listen to me. So I'm
trying to help you out. I'm trying to help you out.
Are we having a fight live on the pod?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like my twin sister, Missy, she listens to this pod every week, and I
What up,
love
Missy?
her for it. And she literally will go like, oh, yeah, you look really good in these colors. Or send me notes about, hey, just about anything. Like, okay, when Joe says some great notes, like, you should try to say something good. No, just kidding. But she does give me feedback, and I'm like, okay, noted. Like, I want to take your feedback and implement it. Mm-hmm. So I just don't understand that just because you're so stubborn that if I give you opinion and you won't listen, you're like, oh yeah. I'm like,
will I not listen, or do I have a
your
different
own
opinion? There's two very different things.
Yeah,
but also feedback is different than input, right? She's giving you feedback and you're talking about,
yeah,
this, and you're choosing this example with the clothes. That's not feedback, that's input. That is, hey, I don't like that shirt. You shouldn't wear that shirt. Feedback would be, oh, like that, when you wore that shirt last time, the color palette didn't match, or I don't know if with the sunlight from the lobby. Yeah.
But that's the point. I'm thinking about all those things.
Yeah, I know you are, and we've talked about this on an episode before, and it's a thing that we're always gonna probably have summits in the middle about. Is that sometimes you think and want your opinion to be chosen.
Yes.
And sometimes I may not choose that opinion. And that's gonna be one of our fights.
Yeah, but I think it's funny because I'm like, here I am just giving you my opinion because I'm looking out for you. I'm not trying to
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to say be controlling or anything. I'm just like, oh yeah, I don't know if that t-shirt is my favorite on you. So if we're recording something, maybe you should choose something that is gonna be a good one.
And then what would the response be if I like the shirt? That you don't like how it looks on me, but I like how it looks on me.
Well, then that's on you. I just said,
oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, then I was like, okay, do you. You do you, boo-boo.
That's on you is a great, I think, place to land. I gave you my thoughts. I gave you my input, my feedback. And at the end of the day, that's on you. Well, that's a great posture.
Well, I kind of walked away and I was like, has he ever told me, hey, I don't like that on you? Never. You've never commented.
This is very true.
And how would I feel if you're like, I don't like that? I don't know. But since you don't do it, I'm just not sure if you have a good, you don't get emotionally scarred by me. I don't think, right? By me telling you oh, I don't like that on you.
No.
Because it's not about you personally.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me think oh, I don't want to put you down or make you feel less because you were choosing a t-shirt I don't like.
Never felt less that you said I didn't
no,
like.
You don't.
You didn't like a t-shirt.
You're pretty.
You're
pretty confident.
If I like it, I'll wear the t-shirt, and I deal with the emotional shrapnel. But I think you being mad at me for wearing the shirt.
Yeah, I think that that's the one place I think we've grown in conflict is because you've tried to pull it up to me so many times is that at first, one of the things that I felt personally attacked by, which is silly, is that if you didn't agree with me, then we weren't on the same page, and then that wasn't good. Mm-hmm. I always wanted you to agree with me.
Yes.
And you kept saying
or
do.
Okay. It's
maybe.
Just a point of clarity.
Maybe I do still like it, but I've grown to understand that doesn't mean it's not good. I think it's like a growth on my part to go, just in all relationships in my life recently, I'm kind of letting things go a lot more and not taking things personally. Going, look, okay, with a friendship that I have, I'm okay, I'm going to do my part to connect because I miss the person, I love the person, and I want them to know, I'm your person if you need me. but then not taking it personally if they're not responding. Because I'm like, I know I've known you long enough. I know how you go. And when you need me, you'll reach back out. But I still want you to know I'm here. I'm not going to like just wait on you, because sometimes if I just wait on that person, they may not know that I love them or I'm thinking of them.
Sure. And that's an interesting thing in friendship, that you have to know how to, like, not every person's the same.
Yes.
And some friends you have to chase, right? You know, because they're not going to come to you. And other friends, you need to let them chase. And they need to be the one to initiate.
It's true.
And
Well, this person I think does need to initiate, but I still felt like I didn't want them to think I...
Who are they? Come on, we keep it real and unguarded. We say real names.
I didn't want them to think that I had abandoned them, or like I don't care.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like a little dance. Like, yes, I'm gonna let you go the pace because I know you like more the chase and you like the one that says that's in control. But at the same time, if I do reach out, I'm not going to be offended that you don't.
Yeah. And I think it's also part of communication and friendship and relationships going, because it doesn't mean that you can't be honest and vocalize and go, hey, yeah, I feel like you're distant. And I feel like I haven't heard from you. Or even, if it's on a practical level, I've texted you. I remember one time with a friend, I said, because he hadn't responded and it felt like it was a one-sided relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm just not that interested in one-sided relationships. And so I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do one more thing and be a little, cheeky, and then see how he responds. And that'll determine how we go forward. And so I simply sent him a text that said 20-1. It was just that, like literally 20-1. And then he responded like question marks.
Yeah.
And then I said, I sent the last 20 texts to your one. And then he was like, oh my God, bro, I'm so sorry, and it immediately cut the distance. And we hopped on a FaceTime right away, totally reconnected, But because sometimes you want to be playful with it. Sometimes you want to like, okay, I'm not going to make this a huge deal, but I am going to be honest, because I was like I don't want a friendship with somebody where it's 20-1.
Yeah.
It may be 15-5. It may be 12-8. It may never be 10-10.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that, but it can't be 20-1 if we're going to be friends,
Yeah.
And I feel like it was a big shift in our relationship because it was a way for us to be honest and go, hey, this is the baseline for what I need if we're going to actually be friends, And sometimes it's seasonal. That shifts and changes, Yeah. But back to our friends Alicia and Swizz, because I think it is an interesting conversation to have. Because once we saw the headline, right, it was like there's no way you can be in a healthy relationship and never
have an argument.
15 years.
Yeah.
And then we actually read the article.
Yeah.
And thought it was really interesting, some of the quotes and some of the nuances, right, where they talked about how one of the reasons that they've never had an argument in 15 years is because they don't yell at each other.
Yeah, do you want me to read what he said?
Yeah, go for it.
It said, he revealed that the couple has never had a heated argument, emphasizing that their relationship has been free of yelling, cursing, or raised voices. We've never had an argument. Since we've been together, our kids have never seen us raise our voice, never seen us yell, never seen us curse at each other. Why? Because of communication. And then he goes on to say, when you yell at each other, no one is really listening anyway, which is true.
Yep.
Nothing gets solved in each other's yelling, he noted. So it's offered insight into the mutual respect that defines their marriage, stressing that neither of them owns the other. People think they can own people. You can't. It's not property that you own. There's a whole human, right? He said, she's her own boss, I'm my own boss. That's how we make magic when we come together, which I love.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And I thought it was interesting, too, that part about communicate, the reason that we feel like we've never had a heated argument. And I think maybe that's the more accurate description. Because I just cannot see a world where you're with somebody for 15 years. Hey, Siri, what's 15 times, what's the math?
365.
365, yeah. Hey, Siri, what's 15 times 365? Come on now.
Well, how many days in 15 years?
Hey Siri, what is 15 times 365? 5,475 days. So in 5,475 days together,
Yeah.
I just can't imagine there's a world where there hasn't been an argument. Because I will say, if there hasn't been an argument in over 5,000 days, you have to be withholding something from the person. Right? Would you agree?
Yes.
Right? We've
Yes.
been together similarly. We're celebrating 14 years, so
Yeah.
maybe a little less than Swizz and Alicia. But we've had plenty of arguments. I think we've had 5,000 arguments, right? If we've been together for 5,000 days.
Yeah, yeah.
But the arguments and the key, I think, what they talked about was really important and healthy is how do you ensure that they don't become heated?
Yeah. Which was funny because I said, oh yeah, we don't do that. We don't raise our voice. And you're like, oh, well, one of us doesn't raise.
That's not what I said.
What'd you say?
I said, we don't raise our voices, but maybe you do on occasion.
But hardly. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's definitely hardly. But it is one of those things where there are, I think, really great tools that you can give to each other and that you can learn in a relationship so that you don't get to that place where you say something you regret, where you start yelling, you start cursing, right? That interesting nuance, right? How you avoid those things is you have great communication so that you're using proper communication.
Yes.
Because when you're cussing at each other, when you're name calling, when you're cursing, when you're cutting each other down, you're still communicating. You're just doing the lowest level of communication.
It's so true.
And it takes more work to get your point across to the person so that they hear you, so that they understand you, so that there's a bonding that happens in the conversation. It takes time, effort, and intention to say the words without the low-hanging fruit that comes with yelling, that comes with cursing, right?
And vulnerability.
For sure. Absolutely.
How do you feel like you've grown in communication, like over the years of around 14 years?
I mean, one aspect would be verbal communication.
Yeah.
Right? Over 14 years or early on.
You just got better at talking.
I was a nonverbal communicator.
Yeah.
Right? It would be silent treatment. If I was hurt, mad, upset, disappointed, whatever, my way to communicate would be silent. Yeah. And when I was at my worst, that would be probably like a subtle, unhealthy form of punishment. Yeah. For lack of a better term. Yeah. You hurt me, so I'm gonna hurt you, so I'm gonna be silent.
And you would, can you explain again what you did? You would like just shut down?
Shut down emotionally or not want to talk because I'm gonna withhold myself. Yeah. That would be early on, and that would be some destructive and unhealthy patterns, But sometimes it's not even as much as intentional as, I'm going to be silent so I hurt you. Some of it was also just being afraid to how to communicate and be vulnerable and open about being hurt or being disappointed, right? Being a people pleaser. And so, I don't want to tell you that this hurt me because then I don't want you to be mad at me and I don't want there to be conflict and issue, and then all the magic dissipates, right? And so sometimes it would be nonverbal communication because I didn't know how to communicate what hurt me or what I was disappointed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think over the years, it's just been a more steady commitment to being unguarded, to being open, to be fully honest, to trusting, the foundation of our relationship, and that, okay, I can talk about these things and it's not going to be the end of the world. Yes. And also get things sometimes out of my head. I'm an internal processor, right? You can call my nickname IBM, right? Because everything stays in there and I have to be very intentional to leave the playground of my mind. Yes. And to enter the playground of the world. It's true.
It's funny because recently, I said to you yesterday, I was like, oh, I could tell you're thinking something different. I can tell. It's like, you're quiet, but it's so loud.
Mm.
And I know that it's loud inside your head, and
It's so loud inside my head.
yeah, I bet. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is he thinking about? I think I can tell like in doing a lot of different testings, you are high in your thought process.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when Erwin told you, like, you think you love change, but you're constantly changing inside your head the different plan.
Yeah.
And I can tell when I'm like, okay, we're on this plan, but you never know if Joe's going to be like, oh, I'm changing the plan, or we're moving, we're going to Calabasas, we're going to do this. I was like, it can drop it feels like out of nowhere, but it's not out of nowhere inside of your head.
Yes.
In your head, you've been thinking about it, and I'm kind of getting used to maybe just going, okay, I'll just wait until I'm going to start moving, and then wait until you tell me something different.
Yeah. So I have a question with, the nature of our relationship, and communicating and getting, I feel like we have healthy communication. I feel like it's a great example. We fight in front of our kids, and because also that's an important thing. We want them to see not just the best parts of our relationship. We want them to see the real parts.
Yeah.
And so we'll disagree. Maybe we do fight in front of the kids, but it's not a knock them out, drag them out, but just more of disagreements.
Yeah.
We do disagree in front of the kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. So they can see there's varying opinions.
Okay, as example came up, but we never talked about it, was an opinion. Like, I've never felt so emotionally like, oh, I don't agree with you. And that was when you were...
Trump and Kamala, or no? Oh, no, just kidding.
Is when you were telling River that he had to finish that mouthful. And he was like, I'm going to throw up.
Yes.
And I was like, let the kid spit out the food.
Sure.
And you wouldn't let him. You were like, no, you have to swallow that food.
Mm-hmm.
But he was getting more and more emotional. He was crying. Because I was like, I don't want to scar the kid just because he doesn't want to finish this mouthful. Like, let the kid go. Let him go spit it out. Mm-hmm. And then we could talk about maybe the fact you got to finish your food, or you got to, at least you got to eat. You got to try.
Yep.
But I was getting a little like, and then your mom was just sitting there uncomfortably going, I'm just going to keep out of it because it's between you two.
Yep.
But I don't know how you felt about that.
Yeah, obviously we had very different opinions on the situation. And yeah, sometimes there's moments where you'll cave in and go, yeah, you got this one. There's moments I'll cave in.
And most of the time I do, because I'm like, oh, I think you're right in parenting. But that moment I felt like, what are you trying to prove?
Yeah. And that's where I think it comes to, that's the nature of a trusting relationship. We go, even if I disagree, even if I wouldn't handle it, even if I'm vocalizing, I'm also going to let you have this moment. Because I felt it wasn't just about the moment with the food. It was other factors that I was sensing with him. I feel like this is an important moment that I need him to know you're not the boss. You're not in control. Like, it's not about the food. It's about all these other things. And so then when we had a moment, we needed to fully get into this, but then it was great because we actually had
because you went into the bathroom.
Went into the bathroom. Normally it's 4 kids in the bath and it's crazy. Yeah. And it was just me and him in the bath. We had like the best 15-minute bath time ever.
Yeah, he came out so happy. Yeah. So what happened? And
that's why it's okay. And that's what happened in that room, was between me and my boy.
No, you gotta tell us.
No, it was just, we had a moment where just, okay, what's going on, buddy? Like, why? I feel like you're really emotional and getting sad and getting all over the top over something that I know it's not just about this food, right? And it's food that we know he's eaten and he likes. So it's not about that. And it's been a lot in our house and very emotional. And so one of the things, I'm not an overly emotional person. Yeah. And I love, and I feel one of my responsibilities with the kids is to root them in sanity, root them in, where they don't go too crazy and insane, and letting your emotions take mastery over you. Yes. And that's what I'm trying to teach him. And it's not always the case with the other kids, but him, I don't want his emotions to take mastery
over him. That's good.
And so I felt like this is a key moment that we really need to fight for. But even the beautiful thing on the other side is like, that's where if you can go there with your kids, with your spouse, with your friends, and have the hard moments, so often the beautiful moments are experienced just on the other side of it. But you may not have it if you're not willing to fight through the tension.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm always gonna be willing, no, not always, most of the time I try to be willing to fight through the tension because I believe in the beautiful moment that's just on the other side of it.
Dang, that's good.
So one thought I had was I loved in the article with Alicia and Swizz that they were talking about that they don't cuss at each other.
Yeah.
They don't raise their voices.
Yeah.
And for me, it felt like a little bit of like these are like some non-negotiables that they have.
Yeah.
And we've talked plenty of time individually, in private, but also I was like, I don't know if we've had this public conversation about some of the non-negotiables we have. Because I think it is really important in a relationship that you establish non-negotiables that you both agree on. Because there's things that we have differing opinions on, 100%. There's things that we see the world differently on.
Yeah.
There's other things that are a baseline, a foundation for us.
Yeah.
And early on in our relationship, we established some non-negotiables that I feel like have been the North Star for us that have helped keep us centered.
Yeah.
You know? So what are some of the non-negotiables that we have that we established and have kept to?
Well, I think one, yelling. We don't yell. And we definitely don't yell in front of the kids. So I think that was interesting that you said about like we keep it real in front of the kids, but we show that we disagree with each other. And it's funny because sometimes they're like, oh, don't fight. And we're like, this is not fighting. This is just two people having a disagreement about food or something. It was very small things, but it just shows how sensitive kids can be. And they want to know that things are safe, that they're safe. And I think they're looking at us as their guide to say, is this safe? Can we be ourselves, you know? And so I think that's important that we make sure that it's a safe environment for our children, that they know we respect each other. So I'd say like no yelling, that we always respect one another. Definitely no cursing.
Try not to most of the time, You know, you're from Australia, so Aussies, something just naturally flows off the tongue, right? Which we've had the kids, right? Be like, oh, where'd you hear that from? And then you're like, oh, that was me.
That was one. It's funny because I got a group chat from someone that were like, oh my gosh, have you ever sworn in front of your kids and not realize that you said it, and then you realize they're in the car with you, they're with you. So that was one time that I have been angry, so angry. I haven't been that angry in years. I've never felt myself like my blood turn red. I was like, oh my gosh. And I said a swear word in front of Indy.
Which one was it?
The F word, which is
whoa, you dropped the F word.
Yeah,
wow.
I don't even say that word.
Freedom?
Exactly.
Focus.
And then he's like, I looked at him like, I am so sorry. Please forgive me. I should never have said that. And then one time I think, he said it. I can't remember to who. And he's like, oh yeah, Mommy said it one time. But luckily, he has never said it again. And it's great.
Of course, such a great kid.
It's such a great
kid. He's never going to say it ever again in his
life.
No,
he will. But I'm just saying they don't seem to use any cursing. But I have to say, I did grow up with a bit of cursing, and it's very like common. But I really did try to, when I think I met you, I really tried hard to stop swearing because I was like, I don't think it's necessary. And so and when I hear it, it's funny because when I hear a swear word, I'm like, it kind of jars me a little bit. So it's just an interesting thing.
And it's like to each their own, not hear the morality police, not going to tell you shouldn't. That's just it.
Our thing.
Yeah, and for us, it's more of like the cursing at each other because, you know, words have power, and one of the reasons we had like a non-negotiable is not even just, we never even said no swearing.
You said no name calling.
It's a part of our, you know, just a part of our culture. We just don't swear a ton, but there wasn't, the non-negotiable piece was no name calling.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, that's what goes beyond the curse word. That's what
Yeah.
goes beyond a 4-letter. That's how you can mark people. And we know what we're doing when we're saying certain words.
Yeah.
And when you're in an unhealthy relationship and you don't have the foundation of trust, respect, is you think you have to win the argument by cutting the person.
Yeah.
And it's just never worth it. And the damage, like
Yeah.
we've been with so many couples, right? Where you see and sometimes the irreparable damage that happens
Yeah.
when people name call.
Yes.
Because you can't take it back. You
Yeah.
can try to heal from it,
Yeah.
but there's some of those wounds that come from name calling that really cut to the core.
And I think when you like belittle someone in an argument, the sad part is that this is the person you're choosing to be with. And now you've just destroyed that other person. You've made them less. If they're your spouse, say they're your wife, it's like, well, now you've just belittled her, degraded her in an argument, in a heated relationship. But then now you have to deal with the shrapnel afterwards.
Yep.
Of that now she's more insecure, and vice versa, or she's the mom of your children.
Yeah.
And I think we have to look at it the lens of, would you want your kids to do the same to their partner?
For sure. Or even their siblings.
Or their siblings.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
And we're teaching them so many things. And I read an article about parenting, especially that, okay, we're always going to damage our children.
Oh, that's
Just-
encouraging.
It's encouraging, I know. Or we have to, there's so much of like our parents destroyed us by giving us their insecurities and then some. And they were saying that, what was I about to say just then?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, my brain. In an argument. Oh, thank you. Jeez. Is about being mature. He's like, we got to stop being immature people. And I think that that's the tough part, is that I don't know if we have a culture of saying, hey, you need to do people, where people before us say to us, hey, you have to just man up. Like, now you're a man. You're not a boy anymore. You're now a husband or a partner to someone. You may be a dad. Like, you have to own things in a different way. You have
Sure.
to own up to your own mess and go, I cannot let this mess keep seeping out of me in arguments or lose control.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's like, we need to take more ownership of what we say and what's inside of us. And if things are broken, then go get help, because it's going to literally seep into your relationships. It's going to seep over to your children. And then they're going to have to deal with it years later going, oh, I just had to handle all the insecurities of my parents.
Yeah. It makes me
And-
think of like
yeah.
one of my favorite quotes from a dear friend who's no longer with us, Ricky Williams, whose son is Jacob, who's
Amazing.
part of Mosaic,
Dad, amazing
and
husband, yeah.
him and his mom Laura are incredible people. But Ricky said this one time. He used to teach a lot of our leaders at Mosaic, and he said, because the phrase, oh, that was, I don't know what happened to me, that was so out of character, or even people say that about other
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Oh, that was so out of character for her. And I'll never forget, he said, it's impossible to do something out of our character. And it was like so good. I got in my spirit. He's like, if you don't want anything negative to get out, then make sure that what's in is positive and encouraging and healthy, because that's who we are at our core. And the way that you protect yourself from name calling, from belittling, from disrespect, is it starts with your core. It starts with your character. It starts with you deciding, I'm going to make sure that what happens in here, I'll be proud of when it comes out. And when you have a bad moment, right, you want to scale it. When you're really unhealthy and really destructive, those bad moments wound really deeply.
Yeah.
But when you've checked yourself, when you put in the work, right, when you've allowed other people to pour into you, and you've taken the time to build a healthy you, it ensures that when your bad self comes out, it doesn't cut. It just actually creates space for you to have honest conversations about the nature of your relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need to model for our kids. We need to model for our friends. We need to model for our families, right? Someone has to be willing to be an example.
Yeah.
You know, someone has to be willing to show that there's a different way and that we don't have to, you know, you don't have to cut, you know? That's just, that'll never draw you closer to the person.
It's good.
It always creates dissonance.
Yeah. So it's like you either are always the victim, right? And wanting someone else to help repair you or to make you feel better, or you're the person that's like, I'm going to own my brokenness, I'm going to start healing, and I'm going to be mature, and I want to be the better person. Yeah. Like, show in an argument. Like, I think that's two things. One, like, okay, the work that you do outside of the arguments is what's going to prepare you for the argument.
Yeah, for sure.
And then when you're inside the argument is the real test if you've really grown. Can you really restrain yourself when we talk about this saying when we say go against yourself. So when you feel yourself rising up, which is what I feel like when we've had arguments and my old self is like starting to seep in, I'm like, oh, I can feel it coming in and I just want to say this one thing, or I just want to lash out. And I have to say to myself, well, who do you want to be, Beck? In this moment, who do you want to be? Do you want this emotion to overshadow you and overpower you, or you want to be in control here? And I think what you said about River, like, you want to make sure as a little kid that he knows he's in charge, not his emotions.
Yeah.
And so here I am in a heated emotional moment. I have to say to myself, who's going to win here? Because it will, in one moment, it will feel good just to say whatever you want to say and just get it out because it feels good. But then you've lost. So maybe that will help relationships. If you're in that moment to go, okay, I've done the work, or have I done the work? Ask the question. And then in the heat of the motion of the argument, say, okay, who am I going to be out of this? And do I want my partner to look at me and go, thank you for being the bigger person here. Thank you for being a safe place to have this argument or to have this vulnerable conversation where you're not belittling me.
Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah. And even, I love that, even talking about having a safe space to be honest, have a safe space to be open. That's such a key to establishing a healthy foundation of a relationship. Like, I was just having a conversation with a friend who called me and, he's like, hey, I need some help in a relationship. And here I was like, cool. Yeah. What's going on? Tell me the big things, he's like, all right, here's two things. And he said one thing that I think part of me feels like he wanted me to dive into and talk about. Yeah. Because it's one of those things, it's the one issue that seems like it could be
the biggest
issue. Big deal, but it wasn't really. It was too obvious, So I always try to look for the subtleties.
Oh, that's good.
When I'm counseling someone or giving, advice. And so I was like, nope, that one's too obvious. And I didn't say this, but that's what I'm thinking. So I said, well, okay, well, what's the other one? So, the second one is, and then he starts describing this one, and it's more subtle. It's not as, blatant.
Yeah.
And so I just, okay, well, and it was a little bit vague too. And that's the other thing, is how you can know in counseling people. The more vague they are, the less they want to fully disclose.
Yeah.
And that's the key. Because I think, okay, let's deal with that. So, after he shared pretty vague for a while, I said, well, can you give me an example of how that played out recently? Yeah. And he's like, well, this happened literally like last night. Yeah. And he tells me the situation and it's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
It's in the small little nuance, but something he said as she communicated to him, they're dating. And he had this little buzzword, little buzz phrase. And he said, what she told me, and I couldn't wrap my mind around it, what was really hurtful and I didn't understand, is that I don't feel safe with you. And it wasn't a physical safety. Yeah. It wasn't a,
it could be an emotional safety.
No, just like I don't feel safe to be my like authentic self with you.
Yeah.
And that's the subtlety in a relationship that can be a killer, right? Because what she's saying is there's things I'm withholding.
Yeah.
There's hurts, there's frustrations, there's, there's a gap that I can't figure out how to communicate to you. I don't know how to get on the same page with you. And then you're hurt because her saying, I don't feel safe, if it feels like an indictment on you, like you're a dangerous person.
Yeah.
Whether it's emotionally or,
Yeah.
And even the whole situation, it wasn't even that he created an unsafe environment. And I was like, that's again, the obvious part. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the nuance of what is she saying without saying it?
Yeah.
What's she communicating? Or what is she trying to communicate to you that she doesn't have the words for?
Yeah.
And then we just took the next 30 minutes and I just kind of walked him through, hey, this is what I see. This is practical things I think you can do, right? You're trying to get on the same page first so then you can communicate moving forward. But I said, here's one thing you need to do. And straight up as a man, your job is to make sure that she knows you will always be willing to chase her. You'll always be willing to fight for her. You'll always be willing to like do whatever it takes in your actions to bridge the gap before you get on the same page. Because I think a lot of guys, we want to get on the same page first, and then I'll show you X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
And I said, no, do the action first.
Like, can you give an example?
I'm trying to be vague
I know, but
for sake of discretion.
Can you give me another example?
I wish I had another example.
You can't think about it? Because, okay, I have a couple of thoughts on that. I know that I struggled with that, of feeling safe. And even when we went to therapy, the therapist was like, oh, Beck, you need to be more open and vulnerable and trust Joe that he will listen to you and be understanding. And then you, like that kind of cycle, like I'm not communicating, so then we're missing each other.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything that you were doing, you weren't not a safe person. I just didn't know how to be someone who's vulnerable enough to go there.
Sure. Yeah.
And when you've come from other relationships or you've just witnessed it, you don't even realize that you've been withholding in other relationships, or you've watched your parents withhold and not be completely honest. And I've seen it play out like where they're like, oh, don't tell the honest truth. Just share what you need to share to move on with the relationship. That to me, I'm like, that's a red flag. 'Cause I'm like, but now I know with you, because you fought with me in those moments, that I don't need to lie for us to be good.
Yeah, that's good.
And I don't need to manipulate so that you think we're in this place that we're not. I can just be completely honest and go, these are my fears, or I'm feeling insecure right now, or I'm having troubles here in relationships and I feel a little more vulnerable than I normally do. And then I can say that to you, and then you don't think anything less of me, which is crazy, because I would think if I told you something that makes me feel vulnerable, that you would think, oh, well, I don't like you anymore.
Yeah, right.
But I think that's learning to trust you with those things and realizing, oh, you've just really have committed to love me and that you really respect me.
Yeah.
But it was a foreign thing for me to. I even wrote down on a note.
Well, even while you're finding that note,
Yeah.
I think one of the aspects of going there and being vulnerable and being honest is when there is an establishment of trust.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. If you're not fighting, if you're not like having disagreements, conflict, it's probably rooted in the fact that you don't trust that person with the truth. Because recently we had a really, really difficult situation come up, right, in a friend group. One of the hardest things that we've had, that we've dealt with in a while, and a huge part of it was because of how out of left field it was,
Yes.
right? And without getting into a ton of details, but we want to be real. This is Unguarded. Last few weeks have been really difficult for us, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And one of the big frustrations in this conflict that kind of came out of nowhere and is kind of exploded in terms of irreparable in the friendship was we felt like it was so out of left field because we had maybe one real disagreement or conflict with this person. But what we found out in this conversation that we had is there was a lot of pain, a lot of wounding, a lot of distrust, a lot of
maybe we had
hurt.
failed them, or expectations
Absolutely.
they had we hadn't met.
That we hadn't met.
Yeah.
This, because even in retrospect, going, what in the world happened? And I feel like a huge aspect, because no situation explodes from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Publicly, it feels 0 to 100, but privately,
It's been building.
it's been building. And
yeah, that's so good.
And that was the frustration, I think, for us going, why have you not trusted us to be honest? And to so much to the point now where the relationship is irreparable, irreparable, whatever that word is.
Yeah.
Because you have fought with us in your imagination for however long, the last year, and you never trusted us with that in real life.
Wow.
And you can't have a friendship. You can't have a relationship. You can't be in community with people that you're not willing to be honest with.
Wow.
And then even in the conflict, us trying to figure out what is going on,
Yeah.
the person not
Being forthcoming.
And that's where you go, okay, the line in the sand has been drawn. We can't move forward because without honesty, there is no intimacy.
Yeah.
There is no baseline. And that's where it was really frustrating and difficult, because I'm like, I'm willing to be wrong. I'm fine with apologizing.
Yeah.
I'm okay with owning it and asking for forgiveness.
Yeah.
But what I'm not okay with is declarations without a discussion. And
what's interesting, because in that person's mind too, they believed they were being loyal to someone else, but they were doing it on high moral grounds. But then I think what you were saying is like, this is not just the only thing. We're talking about this one thing, but I think there's countless things you haven't told us.
Yeah, sure.
Otherwise, we would be at a better place. You would have been more open to bringing this to us and having a discussion and having a conversation like, hey, let's talk about this.
Yep.
Rather than coming to us like, we're done.
Yeah.
And it feels out of left field.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point, like the we're done. And I wonder how many marriages have gotten to that place.
Dang.
Where you decide I'm done before you decided to be fully transparent and honest with the person.
Well, there's one person, I said on a podcast, who's in a process of getting divorced. She admitted that she was done a long time ago, but never said it. And the moment that other person, her husband, started to making adjustments and changes and getting better, all the things that she wanted him to do, she had already checked out. And I think like that's the key thing too. It's like sharing, hey, I think I'm checking out, and help me re-engage.
Yeah.
Before we completely have lost all respect for each other and we're done.
Yeah. That's a great framing of like, help me to re-engage.
Yeah.
To go, I am disengaged. And that's maybe the hardest thing to hear from a partner, a spouse, is I'm disengaged. I'm checked out.
Yeah.
I'm close to being done, right? That if you can get to that place emotionally, if you can get to the place with complete vulnerability, it can be the very thing that not just saves your marriages, but it saves you.
Yes. Because
that's why marriage is so important. That's why commitment is so important, because it helps you become your best self. And when you can look at that other person and be fully transparent, be fully open, be fully honest, and go, this is where I'm at, but I want you to know I need help getting to where we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And can we do this together? That can be the like bridge that pulls you closer together.
And can I say last thought?
Yeah.
Is I was talking to a friend yesterday and she was like, oh, I'm re-engaging, or we as a family are re-engaging at Mosaic. And I feel like God is just like pushing on us and stretching us. And I said, isn't it interesting that you didn't realize that you weren't engaged until now you're engaging? She's like, yeah, how did I slip away? Like, what happened? And one thought in my mind, because I feel like I'm just constantly pushing myself to be more engaged and saying yes to things, even though I feel like I don't have the time, but figuring out how to make the time, right?
Yeah.
And I said, I think what's interesting is that God's always pushing us to engage, because when we engage in one thing, we'll start engaging in all things. And we may not realize that when we have slipped away in one area of our life, like serving, we may start disengaging in our relationships and not realizing it, because everything becomes lukewarm and we don't realize we're in a lukewarm bath. It's like, okay, we got to turn up the heat, and then it helps us, even if it feels like it's a hard thing to do, that actually helps us, like the gift of engaging in one area and giving your time and serving in one area. Actually, God's gift back to us is that he'll help us re-engage in all areas of our life.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. And it's like, speaking of engagement, shout out to David Yanez and Melissa.
Yes. Have we not talked about this? Maybe not.
Have we talked about it on the pod? I don't know if we have. I don't think we. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yes. Next episode, maybe we have an engagement episode. Even I thought that was interesting. That's cool. That in the process before getting married, is called engagement. Where you're having to choose to engage in preparation, engage in the sacrifice, engaging in selflessness, engaging in like having a shared vision, and and if you're not engaged emotionally, physically, spiritually, you're not setting yourself up to succeed.
Wow.
But we're just excited for them. Like married in like less than a month, or a little more than a month. So that's very, very exciting. First marriage. First unguarded marriage.
I love it.
But no, it's been a great time. Why don't you sign us off until next time?
Yes. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, if you've got any insight out of this whatsoever, then share it, post it on your Instagram stories to help people connect. And we just really care about marriages. We care about relationships. We care about your friendships. They're all connected, because they're all connected back to you. And so we want to make sure that people have these conversations. And if we can be a starter in those conversations, then we'll keep doing this podcast. So if you love it, if you enjoy this, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and hopefully we do another live soon, because that was super fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And we will catch you next week or the next episode.
Deuces.
Bye.